Climate change is the gravest threat to the blue Pacific continent. It continues to threaten the livelihoods and survival of the populations of the Pacific small island developing states who are uniquely vulnerable to climate change. The world cannot dismiss the Pacific region as the hotspot for climate-induced hazards and natural disasters. When disaster strikes, life changes in an instant. Global evidence tells us that women and children are up to 14 times more likely than men to die in a disaster. We also know that 60% of preventable maternal deaths, as well as 56% of preventable under 5 deaths, occur in a humanitarian crisis. We know also that gender inequalities are exacerbated in a humanitarian crisis. The survival of women and expectant mothers and newborn babies are really dependent on their access to critical health services such as emergency obstetrics care, reproductive health services, and safe spaces for women and children who encounter violence. To ensure the collective resilience of affected populations, it's really critical to understand and to accommodate the needs and the perspectives and the capacities of women and girls as well as men and boys, because they are not only different, but they are quite specific. It's against this backdrop that the vision for KAILA was born. Government of Fiji, in its lead advocacy role to build regional and global consensus on addressing climate change, agreed to convene a regional meeting on climate change resilience with a special focus on health. The Fiji Ministry of Health and Medical Services, in collaboration with the Every Woman, Every Child global movement, with technical support from UNFPA and WHO, hosted 14 Pacific Island countries to discuss strengthening of climate change resilience through reproductive, maternal, newborn, child and adolescent health. The KAILA Pacific Voice for Action on Agenda 2030 was the outcome document of the Pacific Regional Meeting. KAILA was inspired by Every Woman, Every Child global strategy and its review of 2015, as well as the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. KAILA mobilized solidarity to localize a global strategy through consideration of scientific evidence, local knowledge, and building on political commitments on climate change, particularly the Majuro Declaration on Climate Leadership, the Suva Declaration on Climate Change. Other Pacific and international commitments which framed KAILA in relation to health and climate change include the Moana Declaration, the Samoa Pathway, and the Yanuda Islands Declaration. The Samoa Pathway was particularly inspirational for KAILA because it not only presented a special case for small island developing states, but it also called for genuine and durable partnerships. It reaffirmed the importance of engaging a broad range of stakeholders, including the scientific community, the civil society, young people, persons with disabilities. It also reaffirmed that gender equality and the participation of women and Indigenous peoples are really central to effective action on all aspects of climate change. So in the spirit of genuine and durable partnerships, the KAILA dialogue listened to the voice of affected communities and listened to compelling research led by local women and community gatekeepers, really to better inform the relocation and resilience strategies in a manner that is sensitive to the needs of the people, the land, the culture, the faith, and the state. KAILA is an indigenous Pacific word. In the official Fijian language, KAILA means a loud shout in the context of a celebration. It also means a loud and a passionate expression of intention. It was in the context of a call to action that consensus was reached by Pacific ministers of health and government representatives from 14 Pacific Island countries. And these included the Cook Islands, Fiji, Federated States of Micronesia, Marshall Islands, Kiribati, Nauru, Niue, and Palau, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. The KAILA Declaration called for data collection and analysis of disaggregated data on vulnerable populations and the use of this disaggregated data to inform vulnerability and adaptation assessments. KAILA also called for gender-responsive and inclusive climate actions to ensure that women and girls and young people, the elderly and marginalized populations are well able to exercise their rights, not only as agents of climate action, but as beneficiaries. Furthermore, to fully participate in shaping these actions and responses, and in that process to learn from their unique traditional adaptation knowledge and local coping strategies. KAILA called also to urgently deploy humanitarian and relief supplies for reproductive, maternal, newborn child and adolescent health services, and to strengthen the delivery of emergency obstetrics care, the access to contraceptives, treatment of STIs, services for youth reproductive health, as well as gender-based violence in all health programs, in all phases of disasters and humanitarian emergencies. KAILA also called to strengthen human capacities and competencies for emergency services and to strengthen public-private partnerships and South-South cooperation for reproductive, maternal, newborn, child and adolescent health services. With political commitment comes the responsibilities and the accountability to implement and to deliver promises made to the beneficiaries. 4 years after the KAILA consultation and declaration, we at UNFPA are really pleased to see that joint partnerships have helped to move the Pacific forward towards the 2030 agenda.